Imagine for just a moment the perfect place, a place where everything is in harmony. No pain, no struggle, no suffering, just endless peace. No chaos, no confusion, only beauty. This was Eden, the Garden of Eden, an untouched paradise. This was the home of the first humans, Adam and Eve. Created by God, placed in this perfect world, they were given everything they could ever need. There was no shortage of food, no worries about shelter, no sense of danger. Only peace. Everything was provided for them. God had formed Adam from the dust of the ground, breathed life into him, and placed him in this sacred garden to care for it. Adam, the first man, living in a paradise where he would never know hunger or thirst. And then, to complete this perfect picture, God created Eve. She was his companion, his partner. And together, they shared this blissful existence. Now, in this garden, God had given them one instruction, one rule, just one. God had said, "You may eat freely from any tree in the garden, any tree. But you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will surely die." Think about that for a moment. Just one tree, a paradise filled with countless other trees, bearing every fruit imaginable, and yet this one, this tree, was off limits. How hard could it be to avoid just one tree? But as we know, sometimes the things we are told not to do are the very things that tug at our curiosity the most. That forbidden fruit becomes all the more tempting the more we're told we can't have it. And so, into this perfect world, entered the serpent, a creature unlike any other, cunning, sly, and full of deceit. The serpent had a plan, and it knew exactly how to exploit the one vulnerability in Adam and Eve's otherwise perfect life, their curiosity. One day, as Eve wandered near the center of the garden, the serpent approached her, and here's where the trouble truly began. The serpent spoke to Eve and said, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" It was a simple question, designed to plant a seed of doubt. Eve responded, "We may eat from the trees in the garden, but God said we must not eat fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden, and we must not touch it or we will die." "You will not surely die," the serpent replied. "God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." And just like that, doubt crept in. A crack appeared in her certainty. The serpent had planted the idea that perhaps God was withholding something from them. Perhaps there was more to this fruit than they had been told. Eve looked at the fruit, and it was beautiful. It was pleasing to the eye, desirable for gaining wisdom. The serpent's words echoed in her mind, and the temptation grew stronger. Could this fruit really give her the knowledge that even God possessed? Could it open her eyes to things she had never seen before? And so, the decision was made. Eve took the fruit, and she ate it. But she didn't stop there. Eve took some of the fruit and offered it to Adam. And without hesitation, Adam ate as well. In that moment, everything changed. Their eyes were opened, just as the serpent had promised. But what they saw wasn't what they had expected. They saw their nakedness, their vulnerability, their shame. For the first time, they felt exposed. And in that moment, innocence was lost. And then they heard the sound of God walking in the garden. This time, instead of welcoming his presence, they were filled with fear. They hid. For the first time, Adam and Eve were afraid to face God. God called out to Adam, "Where are you?" Adam replied, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from?" And here comes the part we all know too well, the blame game. Adam, caught in the act, pointed to Eve. The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it. Eve, in turn, pointed to the serpent. The serpent deceived me, and I ate. God had heard enough. The consequences of their disobedience were about to be revealed. First, God spoke to the serpent. Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and all wild animals. You will crawl on your belly, and you will eat dust all the days of your life. God continued, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. To the woman, God said, I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. And finally, God turned to Adam. Because you listened to your wife and ate fruit from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat food from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. And then, the hardest consequence of all, Adam and Eve were banished from the Garden of Eden. They could no longer stay in paradise. No longer would they walk freely in the presence of God. The garden, once their home, was now lost to them. God, in his mercy, clothed them with garments of skin, for he still cared for them. But the paradise they once knew was now out of reach. They were sent into the world, where they would experience hardship, pain, and eventually, death. And so Adam and Eve left Eden, beginning a new life outside the perfect paradise they once called home. They would work the land, raise children, and face the many challenges of life in a fallen world. The echoes of that first decision, of taking that forbidden bite, would be felt for generations to come. The world was no longer as it was meant to be. Sin had entered, and with it came suffering, death, and separation from God. The perfect relationship they once had with their Creator had been fractured. But even in their exile, there was hope. But God, in his infinite mercy, did not abandon them. Though they had fallen, he had a plan to restore what was broken. A promise was made, a promise that one day a descendant of Eve would come, and he would crush the serpent's head, defeating sin and death once and for all. From that first moment of disobedience, God was already working on a plan to bring humanity back to him. This promise pointed forward to Jesus Christ, the Redeemer, the one who would bear the weight of sin and offer the gift of salvation to all. And through Jesus, that broken relationship with God would one day be restored. The curse of sin and death would be lifted, and humanity would be given the opportunity to walk in the presence of God once again. But this time, it would come through grace. Though Adam and Eve's story began in the garden and took a tragic turn, it did not end in despair. They continued to live, to grow, and to raise a family. Their descendants would populate the earth, and through them, the story of humanity would continue to unfold. Their choice to eat the forbidden fruit had far-reaching consequences. But their story also serves as a reminder of God's love and his desire to redeem what was lost. From the very beginning, the human story has been marked by the tension between disobedience and grace, between sin and redemption.